the beginning that you have made.
Why do we need leadership now? It's because we're in a crisis of leadership now.
In a unique synergy, Dr. Thomas D. Zweifel, Swiss Consulting Group CEO, leadership professor and author of leadership books like Communicate or Die and Culture Clash.
Thank you for joining us again. My name is Dr. Thomas Zweifel. I am the founder of Global Leader Academy, where we teach you really how to reduce the unpredictability, the messiness, the chaos that is often surrounded by the human component of management, and really make it predictable, systematic, or in one word, Swiss. What I want to do in this video is I want to teach you more deeply how to operationalize each of these levels, how to build each level so that you get breakthrough results. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we want to then zero in on the lowest level, which is really the most powerful level, and also maybe the most difficult, which is self-awareness. Okay, so those are the two learnings for this video. Now, a quick recap from last time. You may recall that we talked about the leadership model of Machiavelli, which has been around for the last 500 years, but which actually, given the massive changes in terms of complexity, globalization, democratization, flattening of hierarchies, media, that leadership has really completely changed, and that we need a new leadership style. And we actually talked about the global leader pyramid, which you see here, and went very, very quickly through these 5 levels. If you want to make something happen that is greater than yourself, which is really what leadership is all about, you have to start with self-awareness, which means you have to understand your own motives, your own blind spots, your own culture, your own values. And really, rather than being automatic about those, you have to consciously develop them. And that's not that easy, as we will see later in the video. So that's number one. Here you're asking the question, why? Why am I getting angry with this person? Why am I getting irritated? Why is this important to me? Why do I feel the way I feel right now? Second level, once you've built the self-awareness, you have to build relationships. Now, I think every salesperson knows that if you want to have great sales, if you want to have great results, you have to build your relationships. But this goes way beyond having a few beers with your colleagues, which might be great for a relationship, or having sake if you're living in Japan. This is really the question: who am I? Who are you? And who are we together? In other words, what are our shared values? What are our shared interests? And here you're building trust. You're asking the question who to really build a partnership that is absolutely airtight, where you know the other person has your back and you can count on them 100%. Now, the third level, once you've built self-awareness and relationship, is you're going to create a vision. Here you're asking the question, what? In other words, what do you want? What do I want? What do we want? What you want to make sure is that this is a shared vision. This is not just your vision imposed on the other people, but it's actually a vision that everybody buys into, that everybody owns as theirs and says, this is my vision, this is why I work at this company. Then you go to the fourth level, and here you're asking the question, how? How are we going to get there? How much will it cost? What could go wrong? What are the milestones? What's our plan? How are we going to do this? And again, the question is always we, right? So the operative word is not I, but you're not doing this alone, you're doing this in collaboration with other people. So a strategy should always be shared and not imposed. And then finally, you get to the action level, where you basically ask the question, when? When are you going to do this? I request that you give me this report by Friday, or I promise to give you the report by Thursday. So here you have conversations for action. Note that all of these are conversations. So this is not a thing called self-awareness. It's a result of a certain set of conversations. The same with relationship. It's a function of having certain conversations with people that actually build trust or build not trust. Here, vision, there's a certain set of conversations that create a shared vision, that create inspiration, that end resignation and put the past in the past. Here is a conversation or a set of conversations that makes things doable and feasible, and here are conversations that produce results, basically. So the mistake that people often make is that they jump a level. I'll just give you a few examples. If I may generalize for a second, forgive me for this, but in America, people are not so great in terms of building relationship. So what they might do is they might start with a vision and say, you know, we're going to conquer the world. We can make the Middle East safe for democracy. That could be a very beautiful vision, actually. But they're never going to take care of the strategy. What are we going to do after Saddam Hussein is toppled in Iraq, for example? And so they're going to jump directly from vision to the action, which then produces some dire consequences or unforeseen results. Now, if I may generalize about my European friends for a change, they do the exact opposite. They are much stronger on the relationship level, and then they're very skeptical about the vision. You might imagine why that is the case. The last time somebody came with a great vision, it really went south. That was Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, who had this great vision for how to conquer the world. And the Germans, ever since then, basically started getting very, very suspicious of grand schemes and grand visions. So what they want to do is basically go from relationship directly to strategy. And they want to reduce the risk, reduce the cost, or get clear on how to do it before they jump into action. So just to recap, whereas Americans jump from vision to action, Europeans go from relationship to strategy, and you have a major culture clash right there. So that's what can go wrong in the pyramid. And you could see it actually in the merger of Daimler Chrysler, which I predicted in 1998 that the merger would fall flat on its face. At that time, the merger was lauded as a marriage in heaven. Dr. Jürgen Schrempp came in, and I have a great deal of respect for Jürgen Schrempp, but in this case, he made some grave mistakes in the pyramid. He never really created a relationship with the board of Chrysler. They invited him to join him in a joint strategy session. He said, no, I want to go rather on vacation to my ranch in South Africa, and he spurned them. And they basically never forgave him for that. At the vision level, the Germans, the Daimler people had this vision of nur das Beste, which means only the best, whereas the Americans at Chrysler did not have that vision. Their vision was to be close to the customer and design cars that really worked in every single time for the customer, and they came up with very customized vehicles. And so the vision was never really aligned, and they had completely diverging visions of the future, which then you pay for in the strategy, where the Germans didn't trust the Americans with the die-cast molds that they had, the machines. They felt like the machines were too complicated for those Americans, and so they never briefed them on how to use them. And then at the action level, you get the consequences. 26,000 layoffs, huge drop in stock value by Daimler Chrysler, and now Daimler Chrysler is history. It's over. So that's what happens when you do not work consciously at every single level of the pyramid. Now I want to talk about the self-awareness level. So I want to go deeper into this. And the question is really, how do you build your own self-awareness? And that's a very difficult question, because it's a little bit like jumping behind your own shadow and seeing, what are the strings from which I'm hanging. If I was like a puppet, what or who is guiding my strings? And again, as I said in the last video, if you're not completely self-determined, if you have automaticities or blind spots or things that you've inherited in terms of culture that you're not owning or creating or being responsible for, then you will be basically like a robot or like a puppet, and you will not be self-determined, which means the opposite of leadership, right? So this self-awareness level is absolutely critical as a foundation for your leadership. Now, how do you build this? We actually have a tool for this that we want you to use, and that tool is a self-assessment tool. But before we do that, I just want to mention a few stories about self-awareness, what can go wrong or also what can go right. Have you had these challenges where you feel like you're not really the master of your own destiny, that you feel like you're the victim of people above you, you're kind of in a sandwich position, or you feel like there's a disconnect between what your self-awareness is or your self-perception and how other people perceive you, your colleagues, for example. There's a very interesting statistics. Rasmussen did a survey of senior executives, and the senior executives across the board, 96% of them said, I'm doing a brilliant job or at least a very good job, whereas only 67% of their subordinates thought that they were doing a brilliant or good job. So there's obviously a disconnect, 96%, 67%. I think there's something wrong here, some kind of a lack of self-perception. So how do you do this? How do you get to close that gap between your perception and how other people perceive you? And I would say one tool that we've used quite a bit is that you do 360-degree feedback. You actually ask somebody, what do you think about me? Enough about me, what do you think about me? As they say in New York. And you actually really get some unvarnished truth-telling. And I have to say that that's very, very difficult for people in positions of power, right? So if you're a senior manager, you probably have a predilection for surrounding yourself with people who agree with you. To admit, personally, I've had that problem myself. I have had a company for many years, of which I have been the CEO, called Swiss Consulting Group. And as the CEO, I had people around me that were basically agreeing with me, that said, Thomas, you're brilliant. That was a brilliant idea. Oh man, you're so great, And that I noticed at some point that was not useful feedback, okay? I actually needed to get people who would dissent, people who would challenge me, people who would say, Thomas, I think you're a cool guy, but this was really a stupid idea. We should not do that. And unless I got that kind of honest, unvarnished feedback, I would actually run into a wall sooner or later. So I did the same thing with my clients. I'll just tell the story about one president who was seen as a kind of a dictator. And some people told me that even after 10 years of working at that company, they had not been invited to the third floor where his office was, or let alone being led into his office. And those few people who did get into his office were actually dressed down, and he ridiculed them, and he was really intimidating, and people felt like they just couldn't be themselves, and they couldn't even get a word out with him because he was so overpowering, kind of a bulldozer. So I started working with him, and I did a 360-degree feedback. I interviewed people around him, people who liked him, people who disliked him, and I then confronted him with that unvarnished feedback. It was obviously anonymous and blind, so that people would not be penalized. And he was quite shocked with this feedback. He said, this is amazing. I mean, who's saying this about me? I mean, I'm really shocked. And it took him a few days to get over this sense of being insulted and offended. But then he actually started to change. And I was also in a meeting where he invited me on a conference call. So I was kind of a fly on the wall. And I was just listening in to the conference call. And I have to tell you, it was kind of boring. I mean, it was very perfunctory. He went around the room or around the call and said, okay, now London, please report. And now, Frankfurt report. And now Paris. And it just went around the room.